Hello, everybody. Cable Sports Guy here again today, and welcome back. And today we're going to be pretty much breaking down everything you need to know as we head into week number 17. This playoff race is about as wild as it could ever be, and every single little thing has an effect. So, before we get started today's video, please make sure to go down below if you enjoy what you've seen today and hit the subscribe button and hit the like button, as it helps me out a lot and I appreciate the support from all of you guys. So let's just dive right on into it. First off, we're going to start off with how the playoffs are shaping up on both sides of the ball, and then we'll get to the predictions for this week and how everything can, based off of my predictions, how everything could shape up. But first, let's go over the playoffs and how everything could shape up before I make my predictions. First off, let's start in the AFC. Currently, Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, Jaguars, Ravens, Chargers, and Dolphins are in the playoffs, with the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, and Jaguars all having the division leads. The Bills are in the first seed because they own the tiebreak against the Chiefs due to head-to-head matchup, and the Jaguars hop into the AFC South lead after a wild Week 16 where the Titans got beat by the Texans, and the Jaguars got themselves another victory against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. So, as we head into this week, a lot of things could happen in the AFC. Let's start with the 1 seed. Bills can clinch the 1 seed as simply as winning and the Chiefs losing, as Buffalo faces off Cincinnati on Monday night and the Chiefs face off against the Broncos on Sunday. So that's the first clinching scenario. The other clinching scenario is the Cincinnati Bengals could clinch the AFC North title with a win and a Baltimore loss. Or technically they could also do it with a tie and a Baltimore loss, but I highly doubt we're going to get a tie. So a win and a Baltimore loss to Pittsburgh would mean the Bengals would go and win the AFC North. Almost negates their Week 18 matchup. I would honestly prefer that the Ravens and Bengals both win to make Week 18 that much more exciting, but you'll see in my predictions how I feel like everything's going to fall out. And then the last clinching scenario for this week is the Miami Dolphins could clinch the final playoff spot. Not final playoff spot because the Jaguars and Titans are still technically fighting, but the final wild card spot, because if the Dolphins beat New England and the Jets, if they were to lose to Seattle, Dolphins would clinch the final wildcard spot. The other scenario, there's not any other clinching scenarios. However, for anybody that's wondering, what if the Patriots won? What if this happened? What if this happened? Nobody else can clinch this week. If the Patriots beat the Dolphins, all the Patriots do is just hop into that spot. Next up, it still comes up to the Week 18 matchup as the Patriots play the Bills and the Dolphins play the Jets. But that's everything going on in this. Obviously, this is being recorded after Thursday Night Football. So the Titans, their only way in now officially is through an AFC South victory. So they have to beat Jacksonville next week. If they don't beat Jacksonville, it would mean that they are out. Now let's head over to the NFC side of things. At the exact moment, the Eagles hold the 1 seed, the Vikings hold the 2 seed, the Niners are in the 3 seed, Bucks are in the 4 seed, Cowboys in the 5, Giants 6, Commanders 7, with currently the Eagles having clinched a playoff berth, the Vikings clinching the NFC North officially, the Niners having the West, and the Cowboys securing a playoff berth. The 2 other wildcard spots are still up for grabs, and the NFC South is still up for grabs, with the Buccaneers currently on top of that. Here's how everything can happen this week, though. The Eagles clinch the NFC East title with a win and or a Cowboy loss. So if the Eagles lose to the Saints, but the Cowboys, they already won, so it doesn't matter. The Eagles have to win now. Obviously, the Cowboys won on Thursday night against Tennessee. So if the Eagles beat the Saints, they win. If they lose, it makes Week 18 just a little more interesting because the Cowboys still have a shot at winning the NFC East. Now, the Eagles could also clinch the 1 seed with a win. So if they win, they both clinch the East and the 1 seed. Or they could clinch it with a tie and a Minnesota loss, or a Dallas loss, Minnesota loss, and San Francisco loss. But obviously Dallas already won, so that negates it. They can only go on with a Philadelphia win or a tie and a Minnesota loss. Now, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's as simple as them for this week. If they win, they clinch the NFC South and clinch their playoff spot as they play the Panthers. That's the only team that can currently knock them out of the NFC South Championship. So if the Buccaneers win that game, they will go to the playoffs and lock their spot in. Now, There's two other clinching scenarios. If everything went down a certain way, the whole entire NFC could be clinched after this week. But here's how it works out. The Giants, they can clinch the NFC wildcard spot with a win. Or they could clinch it with a Seattle loss and Washington loss, or a Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay loss, or a Washington loss, Detroit loss, and Green Bay loss. So there's other few scenarios if they were to lose, but their best chance is just if they go out there and beat the Colts, they're in. The Commanders can also clinch a playoff spot, but it takes a lot more. They'd have to win, have Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay all lose. So those are the clinching scenarios for this week, and that's where everything stands. Now, I'm going to give my analysis and predictions on how I feel like this week's going to play out, and I'm going to go over every single game. If it's a bigger game, I'll talk more about it. If it's not as important of a game, I won't dwell on it for too long. So, let's start right over here in the AFC side of things. Let's start with the Broncos and the Chiefs. Also, quick shout out to Playoff Predictors. They're the website I'm using today for today's videos. If you have never came and tried this out to try out some of your hypothetical scenarios, I 100% recommend Playoff Predictors. It's a great website, and it's honestly phenomenal when it comes down to their ability to just enhance all tiebreakers, know everything. It's the perfect site to test out certain chances. If you want to see if your team still has a chance, this is the site to go. So, let's start with the AFC. Let's start with the Broncos-Chiefs game. I'm not going to dwell on this game for too long. I know that a few weeks ago they were in Denver, and the Broncos did make it close after the Chiefs went up. I believe it was 24-0 early, and the Broncos made a run. That was when Wilson went out with the concussion. However, I don't think that game will play as similar. The Chiefs are hungry. They're fighting for a bye week. I think the Chiefs will easily take care of Denver and move to 13-3. Now for Jacksonville at Houston. Now, the Jaguars do have me a little concerned at certain points. They've been known to play down to their competition and play really up to their competition. So do they play down to Houston or do they play up to Houston? Now that Houston won last week, they are at risk of losing the number one pick in the draft. So I don't think they'll play as hard. They might want to play spoiler, maybe. And this game honestly doesn't matter too much because even if the Jags won this, they don't clinch the AFC South. So they still have to fight for next week. So, but nonetheless, I still think Jacksonville gets their insurance win. They'll move to 8-8. Miami versus New England. This is a big matchup when it comes to the AFC wildcard picture. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact of Tua, if Tua was playing this game, I think the Dolphins should take care of this. The Patriots offense, as a Patriots fan, I would know this. The Patriots offense has been extremely lackluster, extremely disappointing, and has been honestly struggling a ton. And I mean a ton, and it's honestly really upsetting to see how much he struggled. As a Patriots fan, this is a cry for help. Please get rid of Matt Patricia. However, the Patriots defense is great, and I don't know if I trust Teddy Bridgewater. Yes, the pieces are there, but it's in Foxborough. It's January. The Patriots are fighting for a playoff spot. Belichick's going to bring his best stuff out. It's a division game. I think New England does hang on to get the win, and they will at the moment move into the 17th. Remember, they cannot clinch with this win. They cannot clinch with losing scenarios either with a win. They still have to play for next week because they would split with the Dolphins and a ton of things. Now, we go to Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. This game is huge as it could be a huge deciding factor in who wins the AFC South. So, not the AFC South, the AFC North. My bad, I misspoke there. But Steelers and Ravens. Steelers are fighting for a wild card spot still, and they've been red hot. The Ravens more than likely will not have Lamar Jackson this week. He hasn't practiced, I don't think, at all. So, with that in mind, it's in Baltimore. This is a rivalry game. I believe it's now being played on Sunday Night Football because of the schedule flex. And honestly, the Steelers were really close a few weeks ago at beating Baltimore, and now they got TJ Watt back, and Pickett's playing better and playing solid. I honestly do like Pittsburgh in this matchup, and I'm going to go with the Steelers to get the win. So now, with that loss, that makes Monday night's Bills-Bengals game huge. It makes it wildly important for how the AFC plays out as a whole. So when you look at it on paper, the Bills and the Bengals are in a fight to see who gets the 1 seed as well. Bengals are in a bigger fight because they're looking to win the North as well, though. If the Bengals can win this game, they still have a shot at the 1 seed. If they lose this game, they're out of the 1 seed. But if they win this game, they also don't have to worry about next week. So, Bills-Bengals, this game could really come down to the wire, and I think it could easily turn into a shootout. However, with that being said, I really do think, and this is a tough game, because the Bengals have been really good, the Bills have been really good. Both teams have played absolutely extraordinary. If you look at their schedule, I'll pull it up right here. You'll see the Bills in these past few weeks, they've been on a tear. They've been doing great. And they haven't faced the most insane opponents, but they've been doing great. And then you look at the Bengals, who they've been on a tear ever since their bye week, beating Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, Tampa, and New England. So when it comes down to that and everything, it's a lot of defining factors. However, I am going to pick Cincinnati for this game. So, with that being said, that means I do have Cincinnati winning the AFC North, and that means the Bills get knocked down to the 3 seed, and the Chiefs at the moment do have the 1 seed secured. Does not mean they clinch the 1 seed. Nobody else can clinch the 1 seed, but it makes this race a little bit more interesting going to Week 18 in my personal prediction. Obviously, everything could change. I could be completely wrong here. So then, let's go to some of these other games. Washington versus Cleveland. This is actually a huge game for both these teams. And Carson Wentz is the starting quarterback for the Commanders this week as Cleveland travels in. And, if Deshaun Watson was playing better, I would say Cleveland should be able to take care of Washington, but he's not. However, how much can they rely on Wentz to play good against a strong Cleveland defense? We know how good that Cleveland defense is. It's going to come down to how well can Washington run the football, and that's where I get concerned. I like Brian Robinson. However, the big concern is Antonio Gibson is out. I believe he got announced yesterday that he will not be playing, and that's a huge blow, in my opinion, to Washington, who is going against a really bad run defense in Cleveland, and I think that could be very costly for them as everything continues to unfold and unravel. And with all that being said, I do think Cleveland's going to come away with a victory this week. Only because I'm shaky on Wentz, and I don't trust that Washington's rushing attack can get strong without Gibson. I know Brian Robinson is one heck of a running back, but that's what I'm going at. Now let's start with the Colts and the Giants. This is a big matchup going into this next week. And honestly, I'm not going to dwell on this one for too long. I think the Giants will beat them. I think the Giants do get a win here, and I do think the Giants will be going to the playoffs. Hurts me to say that because they're not a team that I think any of us had going to the playoffs early in the season. But I do think the Giants do clinch themselves a playoff spot. Do I think they're easy first-round exits? Probably. But, hey, it's been a week NFC, and they pounced on that, and they will clinch a playoff spot this week because the Colts are playing pick a quarterback at this point. They're going for the tank. The Giants win this football game. Now, next up, Niners-Raiders. Not going to dwell on this one for too long. The Niners are the hottest team in the NFL, and the Raiders are now starting Jarrett Stidham. The Niners will win this football game. Jets-Seahawks. This could have some major implications as the Seahawks can now hop the Commanders. The Jets do have Mike White coming back. However, this game's in Seattle, and I have liked what I've seen out of the Seahawks in these past few weeks. I am very interested to see how Mike White comes back from injury. However, I look at the defenses, and I do like the Jets' defense. They're still fighting for a wild card spot. However, I am going to go with Seattle here. I think the Seahawks do bounce back into the playoffs. I think they need a bounce-back game. I think this is a game where Geno can show up and show that he's still here and competing, and this could end up being one of the biggest games of the week when it comes down to just the playoff spots, that is. It's not the biggest game of the week, but it could end up being a big game when it comes down to how everything ravels out in these next few weeks. Rams-Chargers, not a big game here. I do think the Chargers should take care of it in the Battle of LA. I think the Chargers beat the Rams. Loved what the Rams did last week, finally getting Cam Akers incorporated into the offense, but the Chargers are finally getting healthy, and they're finally starting to look a little bit better. If Herbert can stop turning the ball over, I do like the Chargers' chances when it comes to the playoff time. Now, a huge game when it comes to the clinching of it idol in the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers face off against Sam Darnold, the Panthers, and the Panthers have been red hot, while the Buccaneers have been, they've had to play come from behind a lot. And I look back to their game earlier in the season where the Panthers destroyed Tampa Bay 21-3. I believe it was, if I remember correctly, it was only like a week after they traded McCaffrey. Everybody thought they were going to take about it, and they showed up and beat up on Tampa Bay, and it was honestly impressive out of that performance. However, if I do know one thing, it's that you don't mess with the Buccaneers. Well, not the Buccaneers. You don't mess with Tom Brady when the playoffs are on the line. And that offensive line is getting healthy at the right time, and I think they're getting together a little bit. I do think the Buccaneers will win this week, and I do think they will win the NFC South. It is very undeserving to see anybody from the NFC South make the playoffs because of how bad that division has been this year, but it's not the first time when we've seen a team like this sneak their way into the playoffs. We've seen the Seahawks do it with 7-9. I believe there was the year was it the Panthers that did it at 7-9 as well. So yeah, it's not the first time that this has happened. Cardinals Falcons, not a big game at all when you look at it. I do think the Falcons will win because the Cardinals are just injured, and I do like the Falcons a little better in this matchup. Lions Bears, this is a big matchup, and the Lions are coming off a very devastating loss to Carolina, where Carolina's been playing so good at home. The Lions go back to Detroit to get a win, and I do like Detroit in this matchup, honestly. I am going to go with the Lions to get a win here and put themselves in the spot to still make the playoffs. So I am going to go with Detroit to win this week against Chicago. Not too much to think about that. The Bears are still fighting for that number one pick in the draft. I think Fields has been playing great, but I think the Lions' offense can match and keep going with the Bears if it turns into a shootout, which it might as well turn into one. But I'm going to go with the Lions in this game. Saints versus the Eagles. This is a big game right here. And personally, I don't think the Saints have anything for Philadelphia here. Even though Hurts is probably not going to play. Well, I'm pretty sure it's now a doubtful and almost guaranteed no, but he's still like on the fence near Sirianni. He just does not want to confirm anything with that. But Gardner Minshew will be the starting quarterback more than likely against the Saints. However, I don't think it will matter. While the Saints defense is solid, I think the Eagles offense is so good. And their defense is very, very capable of handling Andy Dalton and that Saints offense with ease. Vikings-Packers, this is a huge game right here because the Packers need this win to keep their playoff hopes alive, and the Vikings, they don't want to fall any further and potentially play somebody like the Buccaneers. They're like, not the Buccaneers, like, they don't want to fall and maybe take a risk. I think they can get through the wild card, but I don't think they want to take the risk of having to travel to San Francisco or anything like that because you do not want to go and play the Niners. I think you'd rather have the Niners come to you, be able to stay at home. So big game in general. Vikings-Packers, though, if I know one thing, you do not mess with Aaron Rodgers when the playoffs are on the line. And Rodgers and the Packers are finally looking good, and it's big, but their win against Miami was big last week and everything. However, the Vikings have been so good this year, and the Packers defense just doesn't instill the fact that I think they can slow down Jefferson and the Vikings at all. I know it's in Lambeau, but it's going to be, I think the weather's forecasted for like 36 degrees and sunny. So not a big, it's frozen tundra Lambeau. If it was that, maybe the Packers pull one out, but I'm going to go with Minnesota to win this game and almost guarantee the Packers are out of playoff contention. I'm pretty sure that doesn't eliminate them. I could be wrong on that because I know they play Detroit in Week 18. But that's going to wrap up Week 17 here. And if my predictions were to go off correctly, because this is how I think it will play out, here's how the playoffs would look going into Week 18. And obviously, I'll do a recap video in the next couple of days after all of Week 17 plays out. But here's what we're looking at. The Chiefs would have the 1 seed. The Bengals would be in the 2 seed, still having a shot at the 1 seed. The Bills would be in the 3 seed, still having a shot at the 1 seed. So the 1 seed still completely up for grabs in the AFC. The Chiefs have control their own destiny and would have to go beat the Raiders in Week 18 to clinch that 1 spot. The Jaguars currently be in the 4 spot, but obviously that matchup against Tennessee in Week 18 would be huge, as if the Jaguars win, they go to the playoffs. If the Titans win, they go to the playoffs. So, but I would have the Jaguars still at 8-8 in the playoffs. The Chargers would hop to the 5 seed at 10-6 with their win against Los Angeles, and the Ravens lost to the Steelers. The Patriots hop into the playoffs with their win against the Dolphins, and pretty much the playoffs in the AFC would come down to the Patriots, Dolphins, and Steelers for next week. So that's where that stands. With, I believe, the Jets in this scenario would still have a slight chance of making. I'm not 100% positive on that, so don't quote me on that. But I think the Jets still have an outside shot of making it because of who their opponents are. Now, transfer to the NFC real quick before we close out this video. In the NFC, the Eagles would clinch the NFC East title, and they clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC, clinching themselves a first-round bye, which is huge. The Minnesota Vikings would still stay in the 2nd seed. Niners stay in the 3rd seed. The Buccaneers clinched the NFC South and get the 4th seed. The Cowboys would stay in the 5th seed. Giants clinch their playoff spot and go to the 6th seed, and the Seahawks would currently be holding on to the 7th seed with the Lions, Commanders, and technically the Packers still, I'm pretty sure. Again, pretty sure. Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. But with that, the Seahawks would be in the playoffs at the moment, with Week 18 being huge for everybody. So that is my predictions for this week. That's how I think Week 17 of the NFL season will play out. For everybody out there, it is New Year's Eve. If you guys enjoyed today's video and want to see more content from me talking and discussing this, we'll be discussing the rest of this season, discussing the off season, discussing everything coming up and every single possibility. So if you want to stick around and get more NFL content, we'll have it weekly and have updates constantly. So if you want more NFL content, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. I appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys all in the next one. Enjoy your New Year's Eve, guys, and enjoy this week of football. Peace out, everybody.